Let's talk college football. The college football playoff is right around the corner. We are in conference championship week. We saw some great games this weekend, mainly Alabama, Auburn, and Ohio State, Michigan. But let's get into it. Let's talk about some scenarios and who's going to win those scenarios and who's going to win depending on which scenarios happen and what I think should happen and what I want to happen, because those are both very different things. Let's get into it. So the college football playoff poll comes out tonight. It'll be interesting to see how high Michigan jumps, if Cincinnati makes any moves, how far Bama falls, if at all, and how far Ohio State falls after their loss. The AP poll has them dropping from 2 to 5, and Michigan jumping all the way up to number 2. Personally, I don't think that'll happen. I don't think Michigan can jump Cincy and Bama, but I could see them jumping Bama. It'll be very interesting. Let's talk playoff though. Georgia is a lock. They'll be in the playoffs one way or another. Georgia with a win versus Bama will be the 1 seed, and Georgia with a loss will definitely still be in the top 4. How far they'll fall, who knows, but there's no way Georgia falls out there. They're in there for sure, and they're definitely a chance. Definitely a threat to win. It'll be very interesting to watch them play against Bama. Bama is a team that kind of needs to win to get in. I would have said there should be a lock before the game against Auburn, but that Auburn game is going to drop them a lot. If they had stayed the 2 seed coming in this game, you can't lose. If you're the 2 and you lose to the 1, there's no way you should fall to the top 4, if at all, if it's competitive, of course, which I think it will be. However, Bama now needs to win this game with the way they played against Auburn. They're most likely going to be a 3 or 4 going into this game, and if they lose, I could see them getting jumped by Notre Dame. Oklahoma State's very interesting. They have a win and get in game, in my opinion, against Oklahoma. If they win, they definitely should pass Alabama. If Georgia loses to Alabama in a very close game, that is probably the only way Oklahoma State falls out, unless Michigan or Cincinnati lose in one way. However, I don't see that happening. I don't think Iowa's very good at all. They barely beat Nebraska, although Nebraska's played teams close. And Cincinnati, I don't find them struggling to Houston at all. They'll definitely get in with a win, and they'll be the first Group of 5 team in the playoff. So I have Cincinnati and Michigan both being in and with fairly easier conference championship games. I have Georgia getting in no matter what, so those 3 teams are pretty much locks to me. The interesting scenario is Alabama, Oklahoma State, and Notre Dame. These are the only 3 teams that could possibly get in and make some chaos with realistic situations. If Bama loses a close game, they have a good argument. If Oklahoma State then wins, and Notre Dame's not playing, so that hurts them a lot. If Oklahoma State loses, the only argument is Notre Dame, and with a close loss, I think Bama gets in over Notre Dame. But if Bama loses by 2 possessions and Oklahoma State loses, Notre Dame should be in over Bama, just to give a different team to play Georgia, because Georgia's going to be the 1, and if Bama, you don't want to see Georgia Bama back-to-back weeks. As long as we all want to see that game, it'd be great if it's close. You can't really do that. You can't really schedule them back-to-back. That's why if Bama was the 2 seed and lost to Georgia in 1 versus 2 matchup, you can only slot them at 3, and then they're not playing back-to-back weeks. So Bama's struggling against Auburn really affects their playoff chances more than I think people realize, because you don't want to have these back-to-back games. If they were the 2 seed and they lost, you could leave Cincinnati at 4, Michigan at 2, and then you have Michigan versus Bama, Georgia versus Cincinnati. That would be far more entertaining. I think Georgia stays amazing and beats Bama. The spread's currently 6.5, and I think if Georgia ends up covering that spread, winning by 7 or more, winning by 2 possessions, I think that'll knock Bama out. I have Michigan easily beating Iowa. I think Iowa's not very good. Cincinnati, as we all expect, I think they're going to handle Houston. That'll be your 2-3 game, Michigan versus Cincinnati. And at the 4th spot, I have Oklahoma State easily handling Baylor, having an impressive win against Baylor's backup quarterback, who I believe is expected to play over their injured quarterback. And then I have Oklahoma State getting at 4. So we have Georgia versus Oklahoma State, Michigan versus Cincinnati. I have Georgia easily handling Georgia beating Oklahoma State easily. Jumping the gun there with Michigan State. I mean Michigan to beat Cincinnati. My championship is a Power 5 heavyweight battle, Georgia versus Michigan. And although it's exciting having new teams in, I think the heavyweights are going to do it. They're going to be the teams that dominate, and I don't really think the playoff game's going to be close. Cincinnati's good, but I don't think they can handle Michigan. Their run game is very impressive, along with their defense and their 2 ends. They're just better than anybody else Cincinnati has. Aiden Hutchinson's probably the best player in college football at the moment. Although I'd like to see Notre Dame get in, I really don't think they do. The only way they can get in is with an Oklahoma State loss and a bad Bama loss. It'd be nice to watch Kyron Williams play, because he's been amazing so far this season, but I just see that as the 4th playoff. So I have Georgia, Michigan in the championship, and I'll take Georgia plus whatever the points are. I think Georgia's just too good to beat Michigan. Georgia will set themselves up with great field position and just slowly get points, and I really think Michigan could potentially get shut out in a national championship against Georgia. Georgia has the chance to play the playoff without allowing any points. I think the best game Georgia will play all year is probably going to be Alabama, but there's a chance that it could be that Clemson game they played at the beginning of the year, where they only won by 7. Georgia's just so good. Their defense is amazing. Their offense does what they got to do to win. Stetson Bennett's good for them because he doesn't really turn the ball over. He knows what he's got to do, and it's just enough. He doesn't have to do a lot. He's just got to get the ball to the playmakers. They'll make plays. The defense will set them up where they don't have to march down the field 80 yards to score. Georgia in a championship game will probably have at least like 5 drives under 50 yards in scoring points. They'll have short 30-yard drives that end in field goals, and their defense will set them up with 50-yard drives to score touchdowns. They're just that dominant and they're that good. The defense is legit. What I want to happen, I personally would love to see Michigan struggle versus Iowa and Alabama beat Georgia. This would allow Cincinnati to jump and be a group of 5 number 1 team heading to the playoff. I still don't think Cincinnati would win, but how cool would it be if Cincinnati was 1, Michigan with a struggling loss was 2, Alabama was 3 with a win over Georgia, and Georgia was 4 after a loss versus Bama. These would just lead for some interesting games, and in this situation, I'd probably expect Bama and Georgia to play again in the national championship, like they've done before. But I think this would be great to see Cincinnati jump to being the 1 seed. I don't think it'll happen, but it's very exciting. I wouldn't say I'm going to root for it, because I don't know if I can really root for Alabama as a Clemson fan, just as a college football fan in general. It's nice to see some new teams in there, but it'd be cool to see Cincinnati as the 1 seed. So my official predictions are Georgia versus Michigan in the national championship, and I'll take Georgia with whatever points you're going to give me. I think Georgia's the best team in the nation by far. I know it's pretty easy to say that, sit and watch them, but Georgia's just so dominant, and no team's really competing with Georgia right now. The only team that can is Bama, and they kind of scared me after this weekend, although I don't think they would beat Georgia anyway, and now they really need to have a competitive game just to make the playoffs. So you heard my predictions. Let me know what you think, and we'll see how they turn out.